Imagine a single black liquid deciding who gets rich, who goes to war, and which nations rise or fall. A resource so powerful it doesn't just fuel engines, it fuels geopolitics, economies, and even shapes global power itself. What if I told you oil isn't just a commodity, but a currency that silently controls entire nations? This is the story of how a simple substance became the most powerful weapon in the world. For millennia, oil was just there. People used it in lamps for waterproofing boats, even as a form of medicine. It was a local, useful, but ultimately unremarkable resource that all changed in 1859. In a small town in Pennsylvania, a man named Edwin Drake drilled the world's first commercial oil well. It was like striking gold, but this black gold would prove to be infinitely more valuable. Suddenly, a new commodity was born, one that would spark a revolution, transforming industries, cities, and the very fabric of society. And where there's a revolution, there's always someone ready to seize control. Enter John D. Rockefeller. With his company, Standard Oil, he didn't just sell oil. He built an empire. He understood that controlling the resource was only half the battle. To truly dominate, you had to control the entire system: the refineries, the pipelines, the transportation, and the markets. Rockefeller's empire grew so vast that he could dictate prices, crush competitors, and influence politics on a national scale. He wasn't just an oil baron. He was a pioneer of economic warfare, and he wrote the playbook that nations would later follow. While America was building its oil monopolies across the Atlantic, Great Britain was facing a strategic crisis. The British Empire, built on the power of coal and the strength of its navy, saw a new threat and a new opportunity. Coal was the past. Oil was the future. It was more efficient, more powerful, and a warship that ran on oil could outmaneuver and outlast any coal-powered vessel. Winston Churchill, then the head of the British Navy, made a fateful decision: convert the entire fleet to run on oil. This move wasn't just about technological advancement. It was a strategic declaration. By the early 20th century, oil was no longer just fuel. It had become a form of geopolitical leverage, a tool for nations to project power, shape economies, and prepare for the wars of the future. And that future arrived with a deafening roar. World War I wasn't just a clash of armies. It was a clash of industries, a war of logistics, and at the heart of it all was oil. Tanks, airplanes, battleships, the new machinery of death all ran on petroleum. Armies and navies that had a secure supply of oil dominated the battlefield. Nations scrambled to secure their own sources, realizing that without it, their war efforts would grind to a halt. The conflict proved beyond any doubt that oil was a strategic weapon of the highest order. The war ended, but the lesson remained. To be a global power, you had to control oil. In the aftermath of two world wars, the United States emerged as the dominant global superpower, and it discovered a way to weaponize oil not just on the battlefield, but in the global economy. This was the masterstroke, the invention of the petrodollar system. The arrangement was simple but brilliant. All international oil sales would be conducted in US dollars. Think about what that means. Any country in the world that needed to buy oil, and every industrial country did first, had to acquire US dollars. This created a permanent global demand for American currency, anchoring the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency and giving the US unparalleled economic power. To protect this system, the US projected its military might across the globe, especially in the oil-rich Middle East. It established military bases, forged alliances with oil-producing monarchies, and ensured that the flow of oil and dollars remained uninterrupted. Any nation that dared to challenge this system, that tried to sell oil in a different currency, found itself facing the full force of American power. Sanctions, political pressure, covert operations, and even outright invasions were used to keep the petrodollar system intact. Oil wasn't just a commodity anymore. It was the financial foundation of American global dominance. But the world was about to learn that this system was more fragile than it seemed. The 1970s arrived, and the game changed forever. In 1973, in response to Western support for Israel during the Yom Kippur War, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, declared an oil embargo. They cut production and stopped shipments to the United States and its allies. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Oil prices quadrupled overnight. Gas stations ran dry, economies plunged into recession, and the world was gripped by a new kind of fear. Just as the world was recovering, another shockwave hit. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution overthrew the US-backed Shah, a key pillar of American influence in the region. The ensuing chaos caused another massive oil crisis, sending prices soaring and creating panic in global markets. These two events proved a sobering lesson. No nation, not even the mighty United States, was immune to the power of oil. A handful of countries could hold the entire global economy hostage. The fallout from the 70s reshaped global politics for decades. The United States and its allies embedded themselves deeper than ever in the Middle East. It was no longer just about protecting the flow of oil. It was about controlling it. They built vast military bases, brokered fragile alliances, and played a complex game of chess where entire nations were treated as pawns. The policies of oil-rich countries became dictated as much by the strategic interests of foreign powers as by the needs of their own people. The quest for energy security became a justification for endless intervention, turning the region into a permanent flashpoint for global conflict, and this dynamic continues to shape our world. Today, every time there's unrest in the Middle East, oil prices spike, trade wars, economic sanctions, and currency fluctuations can often be traced back to the ongoing struggle for control over energy resources. In many OPEC nations, oil revenues still account for nearly half of their entire economy, making them incredibly wealthy but also incredibly vulnerable to the whims of the global market. Even with the rise of renewable energy, oil's grip remains unshaken. The financial and strategic networks built around it over the last century are too powerful and too deeply entrenched to simply disappear. The world is still playing by the rules that oil created. So, after this century-long saga of power, money, and war, what are the key takeaways? First, oil is not just a commodity. It is power. From Rockefeller to nation-states, the story has been the same. Whoever controls the flow of energy controls the destiny of nations. Second, finance is a force multiplier. The petrodollar system transformed a physical resource into a tool of abstract financial domination, allowing one nation to exert influence over the entire global economy. And third, achieving true energy independence is far more complicated than just building more solar panels or driving electric cars. Freedom from oil isn't just a technological challenge. It's a geopolitical one. It means dismantling a century-old system of global control. The oil in your car's gas tank isn't just fuel. It's the residue of wars, the foundation of alliances, and the lifeblood of the global economic engine. And even as we look towards a future of green energy, the long dark shadow of oil will continue to shape our economies, our politics, and our conflicts for decades to come. The game is changing, but the fundamental principle remains: control the energy, and you control the world. If this story opened your eyes to the hidden forces shaping our world, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. There's a whole world of power, money, and control hiding in plain sight, and we're just getting started. Thanks for watching.